Part 1. Pedagogy of Performance Training. The first section of the book uses performance pedagogy as a site to analyze cognition and makes some pretty strong claims about the cognitive demands placed on actors, such as maintaining dual consciousness and heightened awareness of the physical processes of emotion and thought. All of the articles in this section make a strong argument for a kind of creative embodied knowing, because according to the neuroscience they draw from, embodied knowing that can be felt, has more of a physical impact on the brain. This speaks to pedagogical conversations in rhetoric, particularly in feminist rhetorics and digital rhetorics, where discussions about embodied knowing and the place of personal and creative writing in the classroom are found relatively often. More surprising, perhaps, is that this section also reveals an interesting narrative about the self and the other. These chapters, similar to Zidell, describe performance as a process that involves being both the self and the other simultaneously, which requires actors to come to terms with the self in order to come to terms with performance, a process that involves both going into and out of the self. If nothing else, this section reveals that performance studies are a unique and interesting site for studying things like embodiment, cognition, and the concept of the self. Part 2. Eastern Influences on Western Performance Training Technologies. The second section looks at how Eastern cultural and aesthetic ideals have influenced Western performance theories and practices, which reveals one of the strengths of this book. It does not neglect to address other cultures and their contributions. This section has a strong focus on the ideas of altered states, spirituality, and the non-physical, but often still in relationship to the physical body. Devika Wasan argues that certain breathing techniques have the potential to alter consciousness, and perhaps even to help us attain a higher consciousness. Barbara Sellers-Young relates the state of performance to what is referred to in Zen as the third way of knowing, in which one can engage ideas without becoming so attached that you lose perspective. Similar to the first section, this section makes a compelling argument for studying embodied knowing. All of the authors seem to agree that a change in body position leads to a change in consciousness. This section also reveals that many Eastern perspectives seem to understand performance as not only a specific skill, but also a specific state of being. R. Andrew White relates the state of being to that of other spiritual seekers, such as yogis. Daniel Meyer Dinkgraf argues that to achieve this state of being, actors should engage in warm-up and cool-down activities, because these activities will help to protect the consciousness of the actor, in a similar way to how warm-ups and cool-downs help to protect the athlete's body. Part 3. Reception and Reflection in Contemporary Performance. The third section looks at performance and consciousness with a broader, more social focus than the previous sections, which were mostly focused on individual experiences of performance, cognition, and altered states. These chapters look at public performances and how those performances impact us on a collective level. Through their analyses, these authors reveal that public theater may have some very important functions, such as helping us to develop collective consciousness and regain a feeling of control over our bodies, helping us to connect with and understand the other, and helping us to remake society and its symbols. Part 4. Theorizing the Consciousness of Postmodern Performance. The fourth and final section engages with a lot of postmodern theory, which would make it easy to put any of the articles in this section in conversation with other rhetorical, philosophical, and theoretical perspectives. Doug Rawson engages with Heidegger's ideas of the authentic and the inauthentic. Eve Katsuraki draws on Baudrillard's theory of reversibility, and David V. Mason defines the theater in present day as the meta-theater. This section is useful to rhetoric mostly in that it gives new interpretations of postmodern theory and provides an easy bridge between performance studies and rhetoric, but also because it reveals that performance is an interesting site to study theory, as well as that performance studies may have important things to say in regard to theories of consciousness, authenticity, and the aesthetic. Interestingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, this section, the section that deals most with theory, is also the section that seems to mention bodies the least. But bodies are still mentioned.